Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. In this lecture, we are still with the same topic that we are discussing in these days, from the initial idea to the plan. So far, we have discussed these 6 points in the previous lecture. Refine the initial idea, talk to someone who knows, check out other resources, read critically, take full notes, make them easy to classify, and keep complete bibliographic record. And here today we are going to discuss some more points that are: plan your time, determine the scope of your project, work with your supervisor, emotional and psychological planning, information technology planning. Keep a research diary, especially for longer project, and the research plan. So let's start. Time versus design, actually these are two major factors. Whenever you think about the time or the plan for your project, you have to keep the time in your mind, the available time for your project. A time required for an essay or an assignment or an article and thesis, the different categories. If you are required to write an essay, of course you need a time, maybe 1 or 2 weeks, but its assignment may be the same time. But if you are writing a BS project, maybe 1 month or 2 months. But if you are preparing a research article, maybe you need more time. And as for the MS thesis and PhD thesis, so everything is related to the scope of work that we are going to talk after some time. So work out the actual amount of time available to you and you can devote to your research. Benefits: there are many benefits of early organization. So if you plan your time right on time, so you have these some of these benefits as well: getting materials, getting access to researchers, etc. Finalizing supervisor and research design before the end of the long vacation. This is very important because you have to take care of other things in your mind. Maybe if you are required to do your project during summer vacation, so you have to finalize your design or plan and get it approved by the supervisor, because maybe the libraries are closed, or maybe your supervisor is not accessible in those days. So your time of let's say 2 months or 3 months will end until these things are available to you. So failure to meet deadlines may have serious consequences. These are very important results that can hamper your work, that can of course damage your career as well. So deduction in marks, these are the internal you mean the consequences within the institution. Or you have to register for additional semester. Of course, for that you have to pay a fee. And also failure in completing degree, because the if institutions, there are deadline to complete the degrees and you do not plan your time right at time, so that might be the consequences for you. The another very practical advice is determine the scope of your project. What is the meaning of scope? Actually, the scope we can visualize a circle. If your topic is a small circle, of course, so you know that I have my the magnitude of my work is not too much. But if your topic is bigger, the bigger circle, of course, that means the magnitude of your work is you have to devote more resources and more time and more energy to complete your project. So the scope actually is related to the volume of what is required in a particular project, in a particular research work. So we have taken here three examples. Number one is the translation with commentary or annotated translation. So the requirements of the scopes and some benefits associated with these kinds of research have been enumerated here. Number one is you are required to select a text that needs to be translated. So this is related to the scope of your project. and some background reading in text analysis is also part of the, that is you are required to do it. So you have to, if you do not know, so you have to read it, you have to learn text analysis or contrastive analysis stylistic techniques. Some background reading also is needed, or consulting experts in the a concerned area. That means the text is, if the text is literary text, or the text is scientific text, technical text, and so on and so forth, so you have to also consult some expert in that area. And then an analysis of the text to be translated. You have to, of course, analyze the text that you are going to translate in this project, and a commentary on the translation. And prior to that, remember that when you are presenting your synopsis or your project for approval, so you have to justify for the chosen text why you have chosen this particular text for translation. This, the text has not been translated is not a good justification. You have to add more justification for the translation of the selected text. And if the text is already translated and you want to retranslate it in your project, so you have to give more justification, technical justification for the retranslation of this text. The benefit, and the biggest benefit in my view, and of course these scholars are also promoting this one, that the finished project, when you take up this annotated translation project, the biggest benefit is that you can show it to the prospective employees as evidence of your proficiency. Actually, the annotated translation project proves that you are a good translator on one side, and other side proves that you are a translation researcher as well. The second example of this is the determine the scope of your project is an under research area. The translation evaluation is an under research area, and it limits the scope of ST and TT. Of course, these are the boundaries where you within which you are required to work. Hence, it is very attractive. What are the requirements? Presentation of an evaluation model. You have to choose an evaluation model, and we have discussed the translation evaluation somewhere in the previous lectures. If you recall those different models of evaluation by the teachers, evaluation by the critics, evaluation through technology, evaluation through by the publishers, and so on and so forth. An application of model to the aspects of a text is another requirement that you are supposed to complete. And selection of some aspects in case the text is longer. Of course, if you are selecting a complete big book of 300 pages, so you are required to select some aspects of the text. I must say, for an article, for MA thesis, MS dissertation, and PhD dissertation. And if the text short, you can take the full or the part of the text, but all aspects can also be evaluated. Let's suppose you have selected an article for this purpose, for the evaluation of translated article. So you can take the whole article for your evaluation. The third example of this is scope of corpus-based translation studies. And remember, the scope of corpus-based translation studies is much bigger than the previous two examples. So what are the requirements? Building an electronically accessible archives of text needs what? Full-time months of commitment. Deciding the criteria for including text in your corpus. So these are very delicate mental exercises that you are required to do. Number 3 is select your text, of course, your area, and also obtain permission from the copyright holder to use them for your research. Most of the time, this the corpus based translation studies, of course, are based on the published text. So you have to take the copyright permissions from those who hold the copyright. It takes time. Build your corpus, especially if you need to scan in material not available electronically. Is another step involved if the material is not written in in electronic form, or you have to scan it electronically. So that means another step, another requirement, and another responsibility is also there. So that also enlarges the scope of such projects. Okay, the next is the process your corpus. Of course, another phase is required. Align a parallel corpus or annotate corpus with part of speech tag, different aspects. Then you will be able to explore your corpus for research purposes. So very important advice is here. If you are interested in working in the area of corpus-based translation studies, I personally do not recommend for you people at this time and at this stage of our department, and of course your is but anyways, but if you are interested in that, so you have to only limit time, then use some of the corpus which are already available in electronic form. Advice is related, if you are so interested and you're so keen to take such projects, so keep this bit of advice in your mind. Number 9, with work with your supervisor. Supervisor, I tell you, is a very, very important aspect to know theoretically, and to learn from the those who have experienced how to work with your supervisor. Supervisors, in our cases, of course, they are allocated. They are not selected by the student. In our case, usually they do not have option to select. But if that is available, that is an ideal situation. Supervisor, who is a supervisor, is expert in the field, many areas of experience of supervising postgraduate students. So that is his or her experience. Reliable and diligent, this is very important characteristics. Ideally, I must say, firm but fair, of course, a very disciplined person, but at the same time is very fair in his or her dealing. Someone whom you enjoy working with, and this is the very important but very rare characteristic and feature that you can, if you get someone with whom you enjoy working, I tell you, you are very lucky. Mutual agreements between the supervisor and the researchers on the following important things are: the role of supervisor is hands-on or hands-off. So there must be an understanding between your supervisor and the researcher. What would be the supervisor working, mode between the supervisor and the researcher? Is it hands-on or hands-off? I mean, is much involvement, or with a kind of distance between the supervisor and the researcher? And the frequency or length of consultation, how when the researcher is going to meet the supervisor, weekly, monthly, and so on. The time scale of the project, that should be decided between the researcher and the supervisor. Methodology of the project should also be agreed upon. Submission of work and feedback, everything, a mechanism for submission of work and mechanism for taking feedback, and so on. The availability of the supervisor, when the supervisor is available and when he or she is not available. So everything should be clarified and agreed upon in very initial stages. Supervisor has responsibility of these points in a sensitive and sportive way. So his role in completion of research project is very, is pivotal, and if these things are not agreed upon in the initial stages, the possibility is that there might arise problem issues that that may bring hurdles in the researcher's work, and of course the waste time. Emotional and psychological planning. See, this research and intellectual research actually involves, every human endeavor involves the whole human personality. But here we can say that the research involves intellect. It is an intellectual body, but the intellect, of course, resides in a body. So intellect and body, they go hand in hand for doing the research. Research versus love is just like a a good analogy is here. It's just like love never runs smoothly. So research is this kind. It is not that you think that the path is very straight. You will not find difficulties or some puzzling questions that come across to your way while you are doing research. So this should be very clear that research never runs smoothly. So we can take the analogy of the real research phases as the horse in a competition, and he is excited at starting line and ready to go. And the of course the race starts, and he is very joyful. And when the horse hears the starter's gun, quickly settles in a satisfactory pace, and then sees what the first hurdle. Of course, this initially looks insurmountable for the horse, and the horse wonders why it was entered the race. So the from the excitement, from the joy to this state of mind, which is kind of confusion. Anyways, the horse clears, and relieved to find itself on the flat again, it runs along smoothly until what happens? The next hurdle. So this too is surmounted, with little effort, and with the same time with confusion. And the horse gradually realizes that this is the nature of the race. Okay, the next few fences negotiated smoothly, passed smoothly, and then what happens? The water jump looms into sight, and this makes horse find herself in crisis. And she wants to ditch its rider and retire from the race, but somehow it manages the water jump and settles back into the race. Then the horse begins to tire, because the horse is in the race for a long time. So impatience sets in. So it's a feeling of impatience that when it is going to finish. So how much longer does it have to keep this up? Perhaps it could take a shortcuts, but there are no shortcuts. Honesty. The matter is honesty here. The matter is the rules of the game. The final hurdle seems much bigger but past. So the final state is very long. It has to keep up. Exhaustive. The horse is very much exhaustive. It crosses the finish line where rest and reward await it. So degree for the students. See, the reward for you as a researcher, it is just an analogy. I don't want to use the word horse for you people, for researchers, but anyways the analogy is, I think, very apt, very interesting. We can learn a lot from this analogy and learn this very important aspect of emotional planning, the emotional, how to balance, how should a researcher balance himself or herself during these different difficult phases. 11 is information technology planning. Is what is information technology is means what kind of hardware or software you require as a researcher. So there are general needs, your own general IT training needs, for example, for word processing capacity. So to what extent you are aware or you are fluent in using MS Word and other related software. The problems are the margin of different documents into final product, font size, spacing, headings, subheadings, pagination, etc. Formatting, bibliography, generating a table of contents automatically. There are software that help in doing all that. So to what are your requirements for your specific for your projects? Citation software such as EndNotes 5 and then a refresher course on word processing would be a good idea. These are general needs, and then there are specific needs. Scan material, for example, you are involved, you are doing a project which involves the scanning material onto your hard disk. So OCR, so software that read characters and graphs. So do you have software that, do you know how to use it? And which concording tools for textual analysis? Concording tools are the concordance means to preparing a list of selected words or phrases that are to be analyzed or used in a project. in a research project. So concording tools, there are tools, software tools are available for concordance, preparing concordances for the sake of researchers. So what tools do you need in your project? If you are working in the area of multimedia translations, access to subtitling stations and other related softwares. So if you're working in the area of software localizations, the translation memory packages, and is your PC powerful enough? Do you know how to work with such packages? So hard and soft, both requirements must be, planned, must be learned, must be, of course, acquired so that you work in your project smoothly. You're working in the area of terminologies, terminology management, and extraction. Software, do you know which project best suits your needs? Do you know how to use it? So these are very important aspects, questions that you should ask when you are, approaching your project, when you are planning to select that area. The next very practical advice is keep a research diary, especially for longer project. And I would add that not only for longer project, for shorter project, because in these days, the human minds actually distractions are too much. So keeping a research diary is always very good, even for writing a research article. So hard or electronic diary can be, or electronic, maybe in the shape of notebooks or pads or cards, or maybe in the shape of some software or some apps, I must say, or in any electronic shape which you are comfortable with. You know how to retrieve your information, how to access, and how to use them. So, what are the functions of research diary? Setting priorities for each week and noting deadlines. Logging your reading, that you have done it and you need to read it, some other books or material, writing, and other research related activities every day. So, other related activities that may pop up when you are working on your project. Noting questions you need to reflect on, as well as ideas which occur to you, and listing important contexts, opening times of the libraries, and so on. So everything, anything, everything related to your research. So benefits of keeping diaries is bring order to your work and clarity to your thinking, and help structuring your activities, provides reassurance at moments of self-doubt. That is the emotional aspects of human endeavor. You can review your of course work monthly, weekly progress. You can also, this provides, the diary provides you this opportunity to review your work at different intervals. Set new priorities and goals for the next step. The last point is the research plan. What is plan? A way of getting from here to there. So here is the research question and there is the research goal. The answer to your question. So the plan means that you are here with your research question and you want to go there with the answer, or to get the answer of your question. So in between is the plan. So your plan will also have to explain why you want to go there. Rationale must be essential part of your plan, and your plan will say how you are going to get there. That is research method. So there are some essential things. Structure of the plan is it is just a suggestive structure, general suggestive structure. It is not a binding, it is not a fixed. So introduction, I think, is, we can say introduction is a fixed element in all the projects. So your topic, its background and significance to the field, to the society. Aim and scope of research is clear research questions and how you restrict the scope. Or refer back to what we have discussed in the scope. Determine your scope of your research, of course. So the scope of your project. Theoretical background is brief literature review, survey, main relevant sources, main concepts, and definitions of main terminologies, or the key terminologies that are there in your research. material, what kind of data, where from, and then the method that you are going to use, and then timetable, deadlines, and costing if the research, if this costing is involved in your research. The research plan, the format of research plan varies depending on different context and the purpose. These are the factors that of course play their role in shaping a specific research plan. Requirements of the supervisor may be requiring a certain type of plan, or department, your department, or a funding agency, maybe the agency requires a different specific format for the research. The short-term and long-term plan also another aspect, with costing or without costing. So the point here is that you uh, you always consider such things while preparing your research plan. So the consideration before drawing up a plan, what you should consider before drawing up your plan is ensure that you fulfill the criteria laid down by the supervisor, by the department, by the funding agency, by the government agencies, and so on. Establish the exact specifications of the plan and draft your plan according to the criteria laid down. Seek help from an experienced researcher for review. This is very important. Number four. Number five, allow enough time to meet the deadline. This is also related to the time, planning your time. So you have to, of course, because there might occur some hurdles, unexpected hurdles. So you have to keep, you have to include those unseen hurdles on in your way while you are planning your time, enough time to meet the deadlines. So with this, my dear students, we finish this lecture, and see you with your questions, comments, and a lot of discussion. Take very good care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum.